our views changing.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Hopefully we are hearing now.
Welcome back, everybody. I'd like to introduce to you our final presentation of the day from M Resources, and to introduce you to Matt Lattimore, the founder and president of M Resources. M Resources is a company Matt established in 2011 for marketing, investment and trading of steel-making raw materials with a focus on metallurgical coal. M Resources has shipped over 400 cargoes of metallurgical coal as a principal to global steel mills and currently has the exclusive market rights for Stanmore Resources and Bowen Coking Coal in Australia. Though MetRes, as a company 50% owned by M Resources, Matt also recently purchased the Millennium and Mavis coal mines from Peabody. Please welcome Matt Lattimore to the stage. Welcome, Matt. And I will ask you to unmute so that we can hear you and share your presentation.
Thanks, Nicola, for that kind introduction.
And we're good to go. I have you on screen and good sound.
Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to present today the M Resources story. I'll run through a few slides here of the overview of our journey in coal. So our history and track record is that we were established in 2011 as an independent trading house. We specialise in metallurgical coal. I spent 10 years with Wesfarmers and 6 years in Mitsui prior to that, all in metallurgical coal. So I've worked in metallurgical coal all my life. As Nicola kindly said, we've done around 400 shipments as a principal since inception in 2011, and we're mostly focused on met coal amongst those cargoes. As Nicola said, we have strategic investments in both Stanmore Resources and Bowen Coking Coal, and more recently, a 50% shareholding in the MetRes Millennium mine. Apart from sales and marketing, we are specialising in coal characterisation, testing, value and use. We do coal blending all ports through Australia, and we've covered all of the seaborne markets. You can see on the right hand side, that's the total volume which has been handled since inception for M Resources. The initial volume growing as traded volume as the met coal changed from long-term pricing to shorter-term indexation of pricing, and then in recent years investing in coal mines and undertaking exclusive marketing agreements, and we're forecasting here a large increase in that volume, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So the Millennium mine, which is the main point of this presentation, is a joint venture with Stanmore Resources, 50-50. M Resources is the joint venture manager, and M Mining is the operator for the Millennium mine. We acquired this from Peabody, which was an idled operation in care and maintenance in mid-2021 this year. It's a low capex, low OPEX opportunity with advanced approvals, and will produce high quality hard coking coal and PCI coal. We will be doing open cut, auger and underground forms of mining at the Millennium mine, and we share the infrastructure with Poitrel to the south of the mine. And you can see the Stanmore have the contiguous Isaac Plains complex on the left, and on the right you can see that's one of the Bowen coking coal assets, Isaac River. The Bowen coking coal executive chairman, Mr. Nick Jorce, has already done a presentation this morning, so I won't talk too much about this, but Bowen is focused on the development of high quality coking coal projects through the Bowen Basin. M Resources will manage the marketing for the Bowen coking coals through a joint venture with the company. And going from top to bottom, You can see Mount Hillalong at the top, Carbra just underneath that. Recently, Bowen agreed to acquire the Burton and Lenton assets from New Hope. Just south of that, as we head from north to south, you can see that Broadmeadow East was acquired from Peabody, and to the south of that is Isaac River, which is the mine I just spoke of in the Moranbah area. That's the northern hub, and in the southern hub, you can see there's a mine there, Bluff, which has had a binding SPA executed of recent times, and that's a high quality low vol PCI coal that will be exported imminently out of Gladstone. Just to the north of that is a high quality coking coal underground, still undeveloped, which is 100% owned by Bowen. That's the Karora project. So that's an outline of the Bowen operations. For Stanmore Resources, M Resources does the logistics and the marketing functions, and this is the Isaac Plains complex. But I've also put here the BHP Mitsui mines, which is the subject of a big announcement this week that Stanmore was successful in acquiring those on the 8th of November from BHP. This is the Isaac Plains complex, originally in the north, and then in the south you can see the Isaac Downs, in which they're just starting the mining in that area. It's currently, all of that coal goes from Isaac Downs back to the Isaac Plains complex to be washed through the Isaac Plains preparation plant. Obviously there'll be synergies with BMC. It's also contiguous to Millennium and contiguous to BMC. They currently produce 2.5 million tonnes circa of high quality semi-hard coking coal and a little bit of PCI coal and thermal coal. As I mentioned, Stanmore Resources were successful to sign a binding agreement for the purchase of BHP's 80% share of BHP Mitsui coal on the 8th of November. And this graph just shows the location of the three prime assets in that transaction, which is the South Walker Creek PCI mine, which is operating, the Poitrel mine, and the Wardswell project. Thanks. The South Walker Creek mine has a mine life of over 25 years. They produce about 5 million tonnes of low vol PCI coal, and it's all exported currently out of the Hay Point terminal, but after the completion it'll go through the Dalrymple Bay coal terminal. The Poitrel mine is in the Moranbah region, close to 4 million tonnes of product, plus 10 years of mine life. It's also will be exported partly out of Dalrymple Bay and partly out of the Abbott Point coal terminal, which is North Queensland export terminal. This is the coal from Poitrel is washed through the Red Mountain processing plant, which is a fantastic piece of infrastructure. It has a nominal capacity in excess of 9 million tonnes per annum, and it has a large amount of latent capacity. This is important for the Millennium mine, Metres's Millennium mine, which washes all of its coal through that piece of infrastructure and is contiguous to that mining lease. And the Wardswell asset is a large-scale, undeveloped, underground coking coal project. It's very high-quality coking coal, but it's currently undeveloped without firm development plans at this stage. So also, it's an Australian-listed company, Allegiance Coal, although it has all of its current operations in the US. That's the New Elk mine and the Black Warrior Minerals mine. M Resources is the exclusive marketing agent. The New Elk mine is located in Colorado in the central part of the US, and that's turned out to be quite a strategic location. As you can see from this map, some of that coal is being exported out of Mexico to the Chinese market. Some of that coal is being railed east and being exported out of the Alabama Mobile terminal, also to China. But we have the option to go up through West Shore in Canada as well. And that's a high vol coking coal, which is yielding about 70%. So the main point of this presentation is the Mavis and Millennium mine, in which we're the operator and the marketer. We completed this purchase from Peabody in July this year. It's currently operating, and as I mentioned, M Mining, as a subsidiary of M Resources, is the operator. It's an open cut mine and an auger mine for the first year only, and then we'll mine underground off the high wall at the Mavis pit for the first 3 years, and then from year 4 onwards, we'll be mining underground from the Millennium pit, which is on the western side of that diagram. It has a long-term mine life of 17 years, and it's a very high yielding, 85% yielding, high quality coking coal, which I mentioned shares the facilities with Red Mountain, which was part of the appeal in this asset, that it's a low cost, a low capex, high quality mine, which is very well regarded in the market. Importantly, it's all metallurgical coal, both coking coal and PCI coal. This graph just shows the transaction timeline for the purchase of the Millennium mine, overlaid with the price of Australian hard coking coal in terms of the premium PLV. We've been blessed by a very healthy hard coking coal market, which was lucky to some extent, although metallurgical coal is a product, not a commodity, and it took some time for those trade flows to adjust post China ban on taking Australian met coal. But eventually those trade flows did work themselves out, with US, Canadian, Russian coal moving more into the Chinese market, and the Australian coal adjusting their trade flows to Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Europe and India. And we've seen that very healthy rise in hard coking coal prices to today just over $400 a ton FOB. Although what goes up does come down, and there will be volatility in the market, although we believe the fundamentals of met coal business to be very strong, and we'll show some more material on that. So for the Millennium mine, this just shows that we had to do a lot of preparation work to get into mining at Millennium. MCC contractors did the pit preparation for us. On the left-hand side, you can see that after a period of care and maintenance, there was a lot of water in the pits, and on the right-hand side, moving that dewatered sludge out of the pits, so that we could actually undertake our auger mine plan. This just shows the auger mining underway, which is being done by Coal Auger Services, a very competent auger mining company. On top of that augering, we also had have some fresh pits of open cut to develop. This is a fresh pit, an M pit, which is in the northern area of our mining lease, and you can just see that's the shots being prepared to be fired. And this, if you'll allow, I'll just play a little video here showing the first blast in that M pit. And that video is just looking south and and east on the top of the pit. That was done by Ausdrill. In addition to that, we have AMR contractors who are undertaking open cut mining for us at the Millennium mine, and they're engaged in mining in both E pit, D pit, and also M pit. You can just see there. The major works for the project for the long-term future is the underground, which is very important. And the concept was that we would mine board and pillar style from an existing high wall, and our partner for the underground is the PIMS group. And this just shows that both graphically and the picture there of how we're going to come in from the high wall and then undertake that board and pillar mining in the Mavis area. That's the Mavis pit that we can see here. Post that, for the first 3 years, our mining will move over to the Millennium area, the Millennium pit, for that further long-term mining. Typical board and pillar underground mining. The scope of services has capital infrastructure, which includes high wall support and portal structures, fans, conveyors, panel conveyors, electrical, and of course we have to build MIA facilities. And you can see on the right that we're using typical equipment for this type of underground mining: miners, shuttle cars, multi-bolters and feeder breakers, and will require electrical cabling and equipment. This slide shows a summary of the partners and the contractors that we have to execute our mine plan here at the Millennium mine. Since we had the award of the mining lease in July, we've issued over $460 million of major contracts, and they include, as I mentioned, coal auger services, MCC for auger pit preparation and dewatering, AMR for open cut contracting, and the large contract for the underground board and pillar is with the PIMS group, and it is over a $400 million contract. The major works for the underground startup include ventilation fans, electrical switch rooms, conveyors and stackers, bathhouses, civil construction and bulk earthworks, electrical installation, and portal installation and underground equipment. The majority of that will be undertaken by PIMS and M Mining. I spoke earlier about the market prices. On the left you can see the coal prices there. That's just various types of coking coal indexes. And on the right hand side you can see that importantly the steel prices have also been very, very healthy on the back of a lot of stimulus packages globally through COVID. And the whole value chain is quite healthy. Steel price is high, and that bodes well for the affordability through the whole value chain, including met coal, which I'm sure we all know is used in that steel making process. Interestingly, you can see that iron ore has taken a very large fall of recent times, but at this stage, back on the graph on the left, you can see that both the FOB Australia number and the CFR China number are strong. So this is some work from Commodity Insights, which just shows the steel consumption per capita for Southeast Asia, which also shows that the low rates of current steel production consumption per capita combined with the population growth drives significant potential demand for further steel. And for Southeast Asia to reach the average steel consumption per capita in Asia, that's going to require another 600 million tonnes of steel between now and 2050, and another 1.4, 1.5 billion tonnes of steel in order to reach the steel consumption per capita, which is in Japan or China. And that's one of the things that's going to underpin strong demand for steel. The end uses of steel are described here, and a lot of those end uses have ESG benefits. You can see over 50% there in building and infrastructure, and that includes things like solar panels, includes transaction and transmission infrastructure, it includes buildings and also windmills. So that's really important, as is steel for the automotive sector on the bottom, which is about 12% of the total use of steel. And at the moment, and it's been very stable, but the overwhelming method to produce steel is through the blast furnace route, and which has about 2/3, 70% of total global steel make. The residual coming from electric arc, which is scrap as well. And this bodes well for that large increases in demand for steel. It's the predominant method to get big slabs of steel production in one site. This graph shows the current Indian steel production in 2021, and then the projected steel production based on what we know with the major steel mills expansion plans for 2030. And you can see that that's a very serious increase in steel production. And on top of that, there's announced targets which take it even further, and that's one of the key factors that are underwriting the top line there, which is the increase in seaborne demand for metallurgical coal over the next 9 years or so, which is more than 50 million tonnes. I think one of the interesting things is there's a lot of people not investing heavily into the metallurgical coal business at the moment. So it's good to see the BMC transaction this week with some new players coming in, and also the Bowen coking coal team expanding their presence and developing and bringing on new production to meet this demand. Thank you. That's the slide deck in which I've prepared.
Thank you, Matt. That was really informative, and the questions have been running hot for you in the background. I really enjoyed that slide that you put up that showed the actual uses of coal. And when you think about some of the hysteria surrounding coal exports, particularly in the environmental areas and some of the loudest voices in that space, do you think it comes down to sometimes people don't fully appreciate how much we use coal in everyday life?
Absolutely, Nicola. I think there's a misconception about the differentiation between thermal coal, which is used to power electricity, and met coal, which is used to reduce iron ore to produce iron and then steel, and is very much part of everyday life. Hospitals, buildings, bridges, houses, and all of those other things that were on that graph in the daily life.
The cars we drive to work every day.
Yes, correct. And at the moment, there's no substitute. Unlike thermal coal, in which there's other viable industrial means of creating electricity at this stage. The viable industrial way of creating steel is through the blast furnace route, which requires metallurgical coal. So we believe it's here to stay, and we believe the demand will continue between now and 2030, 40, 50.
And beyond. I 100% agree. Can you explain to me the methodology from changing the export terminal for petrol coal? Is that a strategic move or a more cost-effective?
The main reason for that is that BHP own the Hay Point coal terminal, so that's their piece of export infrastructure. And so in pulling the assets out of the BHP group, you need to get rail and port into terminals which have access by other coal suppliers. But that being said, Nicola, it will be an advantage to have multiple port access for Stanmore, for example. Currently, they export their coal out of the Dalrymple Bay terminal, and there will be synergies with blending and having the same terminal, but there'll also be important synergies and offerings for our customers to have a new port for diversification reasons, and it's also a northern port, so it's slightly closer to the customers in Asia.
Will the existing coal handling facilities be adequate to process Millennium's output as well, or are there plans for expansion?
No, there's, as I mentioned in the presentation, there's latent capacity in the plant, so we already have enough sufficient capacity to do what we need to do for that Millennium base plan in the Red Mountain wash plant, the Poitrel wash plant, as it is.
Okay. And can you talk to me a little bit about your infrastructure as far as, I suppose, total asset management and fleet management? You're obviously expanding at a rapid rate and making some great ground. How important is it to use quality supply chain, quality preventative maintenance programs, and, you know, even right down to quality lubricants and parts for that total asset management model?
It's obviously very important. We have some fundamental principles associated with our business model, and that is to deal with first-class partners and contractors. And we also have a really important focus on giving back to our communities, things like local employment, things like buying locally, things like being a good corporate citizen in the local area are really important. But for the majority of the operations that M Mining is having at the moment, it's all about dealing with really first-class partners who know what they're doing and are taking care of those issues.
So you talk about community engagement and I suppose that local content and supporting the local regional areas in which you operate. I absolutely applaud that. I think it's so essential. Do you think, how can industry send a better, more positive message about metallurgical coal, and what is M Resources doing in that space to help achieve that?
Well, I think M Resources is working to present at conferences like this to try to educate the public a little bit about what metallurgical coal is, what the benefits of metallurgical coal are. Obviously, it's a very big contributor to the Queensland economy. It's a very big contributor to royalties for the state. And it's also a big contributor to a pathway to decarbonise the world. And so we're trying to get that message out there, and that's in part why we're presenting at these conferences. Obviously, M Resources is talking very carefully with our customers as well, who are the global steel mills, about the way they see the world unfolding. And it's an important part of modern society.
Absolutely. So for the delegates that are here, and I've seen so many likes come up during your presentation today, it was one of the most popular possibly and heavily attended. How would the delegation, either as individuals seeking opportunities or seeking business opportunities, what's the best way to reach out to M Resources and engage with you?
Yeah, the point of the presentation was to let all of the delegates know what the opportunities are through each of our individual contractors. Some of those decisions and opportunities are going to be sitting with them rather than us. But I'm more than happy to receive contact. I think there's some mechanisms in the conference here as well, or LinkedIn, which is very common for most of the business people now to be on that. We're more than happy to receive contact, and we can point those people in the right direction for the people in charge of the relevant areas of interest.
Are there any particular spaces or anything that comes to mind that's a challenge for your business at the moment where you're actively seeking supply chain members?
I think in part the price graph that I put up explains some of the difficulties for the industry at the moment. It is a volatile industry, and we have cycles, and we have really profitable high margin periods, and then we have low margin periods in which we need to be a little tighter. At the moment, there's really strong demand for metallurgical coal, and that's flowing through to needing to have more really first-class people who can operate machines, who are prepared to live in those communities that operate that. The skills associated with mining, and I think the skills associated with mining can be underestimated greatly. It's a really complex industry, and the people who specialise in their industry are very highly sought after. So I think we're seeing a difficulty to some extent in making sure that there's enough people, but that's a good thing. Creating employment opportunities is really important for those local communities, and that I spoke of that, and that's one opportunity. And there'll be other challenges in terms of sourcing things, potentially like AMFO for blasting, those type of things. The supply chain is a really important thing in our business, because the coal doesn't get to the terminal unless we have every little part of that supply chain met. Whether it's the trucks or the diggers, the people, it all has to be in abundant supply to meet the requirements and make that happen. So we're reliant on each other in that regard.
Absolutely. And all of the community engagement that you do supporting those local regional centres where you operate, it's actually breathing lifeblood into some of Australia's regional areas, so making them far more attractive for a relocation opportunity to take advantage of this.
Yes. That's right. I think fortunately for Queensland, we're endowed with high quality metallurgical coal, and that bodes well for the long-term future for that industry. We sit in the bottom quartile of the global cost curve. That means that through those cycles that I spoke about, the high cycles and the low cycles, we survive and we prosper. So we sit well on the cost curve. We have a high quality product. And over many, many, many years, since the 1950s, Queensland has developed a very strong, reliable reputation with our global partners. And I think as that steel demand continues to flow through and steel prices remain high and our value chain is high, that's going to be good for everybody.
No, I 100% agree. So you're going to be hanging around for a little bit this afternoon and heading over to the M Resources booth, or some of your team, to engage in greater discussions with the delegation?
Sure. I'll be happy to be in the booth and answer any specific questions.
And I encourage everybody to head over and have a really good conversation with Matt about all those topics. Thank you so much, Matt, for your presentation and for M Resources. We wish you every success with the restart for Mavis and Millennium Downs metallurgical coal mine restarts.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Nicola, and thank you for all the guests to listen to my presentation today.
Thanks, Matt. I'll ask you to head over to your booth. And for the delegation, I'm going to be moving you across to the closing ceremony, where we will commence shortly. I will see you there.